All right. All right. With that, hello everyone. I'm Kelsey Lemon, Senior Technical Marketing Manager here at VMware today. And joining me is our Skyline Master and API Guru.
Hello, Sunny Nguyen, Senior Technical Marketing Engineer.
And we want to welcome you to this session on how to use the API tool inside of Skyline Advisor Pro and talk about the benefits that it provides, right? And of course, no webinar would be complete without Michelle Clopton, our Senior Product Marketing Manager. So she's going to be helping us with some Q&A. So make sure that you're using that Q&A option at the bottom of the screen there. And speaking of Q&A, we've got some questions that we'd like to ask you all in order to facilitate today's discussion. So Michelle, if you can launch that poll, that'd be awesome. All right, so we've got some basic questions here. We'd like to know, what your current level of support is. We'd like to know, of course, if you're currently using Skyline, and if so, how many people in your team are leveraging it. And as soon as the questions pop back up, I'll be able to read the rest.
Sorry about that.
Awesome. We'd like to also know your favorite Skyline feature and if you've acted on any of Skyline's proactive findings and recommendations. We'd especially like to know for today's discussion, which of the following applications that you use, whether it's Jira, PagerDuty, ServiceNow, Microsoft Teams, Slack. We'd like to know what social media tools that you're using. And if you're currently coding or scripting, we'd like to know that as well. And if so, which languages are you using? And so with that, we're just going to give you guys a couple minutes to go through these questions. And Michelle, whenever you're ready, you can close it out and read the results.
Okay, great. Yeah, I see some answers just now coming in. So we'll give another minute or two. I had actually accidentally not shared it correctly at first. So we'll give another bit of extra time for my faux pas.
I'd be curious to know how many people are responding to TikTok as a social media tool. That'd be interesting.
You never know.
We may need to do some TikTok.
We may need to do it. My kids are, they talk about TikTok and I'm like, oh, what's that? You know what I mean? So, who knows? We may have to establish a presence there.
That's a distinct possibility. All right, we still got some answers coming in. So thanks everyone for participating, getting all your answers in. I know there's a lot of questions. So we still see some votes coming in here. Okay, it looks like it's slowing down. I'll give another, I don't know, 15 seconds.
Last minute dash, let's do it.
Yep, still coming in here. Okay. Looks like I think most people have got their answers in, so I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. And I'm going to share the results here. So, all right, it looks like most everyone is on production with a good bit of people on Premier support. And most of the audience is already using Skyline, which is great. So this will be great content for you all to learn how to use even more of Skyline. Most people have between 1 and 5 people using Skyline on their team. Favorite Skyline feature, oh, it's a tie.
Really?
Between Log Assist and the Skyline Insights reports.
Nice.
For those Premier and Success 360 folks on. Closely followed by the upgrade recommendations and operational summary dashboard. And the majority of the audience has acted on Skyline's proactive findings recommendations, which is great because that's really what Skyline is all about. Which of the following applications? A lot of people using ServiceNow, some people using Jira, social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, a good bit on Reddit and Facebook. There's a couple people using TikTok. So there you go. Do you code script? Most people are, majority. And then it looks like PowerShell is the most popular with Python
Oh,
following.
wow. Nice.
Nice.
Okay.
All right. And so with that, let's just go ahead and talk about this, right? And so, in the spirit of conversation, right, if you share your Skyline success story, either on chat or if you want to come off mute and share your story today, Michelle, she definitely would love to hear from you. As a matter of fact, she's got some cool swag to give away. So keep that in mind as we go through today's presentation. There's going to be many opportunities for any of you who wish to share your story to do just that and win some of this cool swag here. And with that, right, here's our agenda for today, right? We've recently released an update that has some really, really cool features. So we're going to take a moment and we're going to talk about them. And then once that's done, right, we're going to spend the bulk of the session doing a deep dive on Skyline's Insights API tool. And it seems like for the most part, everyone here is doing scripting, but for those of you who may not, if you don't know exactly what an API is, that's okay. You may even be thinking of leveraging an API, or you may be thinking that maybe perhaps that the API tool isn't necessarily for you, that it could be possibly too complicated, or that it's a skill that you don't necessarily need to effectively do your job. And for those of you who've got that mindset, this is exactly why we created this session, to help alleviate some of those concerns, to address some misconceptions about who the tool is for, and even show how it can be relevant to you all by, we're going to be talking about just very, very quickly, what an API is, outlining some of its advantages and its value, both professionally and from a business point of view. And then we're going to show how to access the Insights API tool in Skyline Advisor Pro. And then we're going to end the webinar with some very, very common use cases on how you can leverage the tool in your day-to-day work.
Hey, Kelsey, we have Marty who'd like to speak.
Oh,
I think probably give us
speak on it. Do it.
Success story. So I just allowed you to speak, Marty. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say the chat shows as disabled, so I can't put anything in the chat.
Oh no.
Wow.
Okay.
So
let me see if I can fix that. But did you want to share?
I've really enjoyed using Skyline with all the recommendations that it makes and the findings that it found. Found a lot of things that I wasn't necessarily paying attention to, and
Right.
it really brought that to light, and so got my environment much more up to date and secure with it. So I really appreciate the Skyline application.
Thanks, Marty.
That's
awesome
fantastic. So I will reach out after the webinar to get you your t-shirt. So that's awesome. And we have 2 more t-shirts to give away. And let me investigate this disabled chat issue here in the background.
Good deal. Thanks, Marty. And so with that, let's talk about, some of the latest enhancements in Skyline, right? So if you have already, enabled auto upgrade, your collective version is now 3.2. And that upgrade provides a couple of things. First of all, there is accelerated delivery of email notifications, right? So if you've subscribed to email notifications for critical findings, right, you're now going to receive those notifications within 24 hours of a new critical finding being detected versus the 48 hours in previous versions. So Marty, be checking out for that. And then there are the dashboard enhancements, where you can now filter, active findings by severity, finding type, and category. And filters can also be applied to support requests and active log assist usage. All you have to do is just click on any of the sections in the dashboard to get detailed views of of that particular topic with the appropriate filters already applied. And then there's also the self-service report for VMware Success 360 and Premier Service customers, right? So if you are a VMware Success 360 or a Premier Services customer, you now have access, right, to self-service proactive insights reports, right? These insight reports are now available to all of our Success 360 users. And also, like I said, this feature has been extended to our Premier Services customers who can now generate and even access, right, self-service insight reports. And with this new feature, right, operational summary reports, those OSRs, they're still going to be available to Premier Service customers, but no new OSRs are going to be generated. The OSR report, as we know it, is going to go end of life in October. As a matter of fact, I believe the specific date is October 17th. Sonny, a little bit of trivia, right? If you're ever on Jeopardy and Skyline is a category, right? And it could happen. OSRs were actually, one of the original features in Skyline when it launched back in September 2018. So it even precedes Log Assist, which actually came 2 months later. But even with the end of life of OSRs, the proactive insight reports, that feature, which is basically sort of like the next gen of the OXR, is more robust. It provides deeper information that customers like Marty can use to drive their remediation plans and even their priorities. And so let me see if I can, there we go. I think I'm having a little lag here. And so, all right, so with that, right, now let's get to the topic at hand, right? So what we're going to do right now is we're just going to dive right in and just quickly define what an API is and what it does. And so, chances are obviously a lot of scripters in here, you know what an API is and that it stands for application programming interface, right? And in a nutshell, right, the API is both a piece of software running on a network server and a component of programming code, right? And APIs provide a secure and standardized way for applications to work with each other, and they automate the retrieval and even the updating of information without the need to go into a GUI or that graphical user interface. So say, for example, right, your company, you may have a monitoring tool or process that, reports potential environment vulnerabilities and even tracks their recommended fixes, right? Hint, hint, like a product like Skyline. And it may be your job to manually, go through and search through those and prioritize these potential issues, right? And even send this data to a ticketing system like a Jira or a ServiceNow or PagerDuty. You may even have a need to send it to Slack or even Microsoft Teams for that matter, so that your entire team can be aware of what's been found and even what's being remediated, right? And while something like this may not be an issue in a small environment that may have a dozen or so items to manually enter, just think about for a second, right? The productivity sink that you'd have if you've had to do this a few hundred times on a full-blown production environment that's operating at scale. Well, obviously with an API, you can eliminate that manual intervention on your part and you can send that data directly to those systems. And that's when the advantages, right, of the API starts to become very, very clear. So let's talk about that. And so again, as you can already imagine, APIs can help increase productivity. The scenario that I just described, could be developed as an application, but if that data, right, if it's already available and exposed as an API, you wouldn't have to build a new tool from the ground up, thereby, just saving you a lot of very, very valuable development time and enabling your company to realize its business goals even faster. And again, speaking of that productivity benefit that APIs provide, by way of automating a lot of those common tasks, there's a monetary component tied to it as well. Quite frankly, the bottom line is that APIs, when you leverage them effectively, can save you money. And with that being said, right, since APIs significantly reduce development effort, right, using them to create an application is very, very effective at reducing costs. And with APIs, developers can fetch most of the data that they need to integrate with those other systems without the need from starting from scratch. And for everyone in our audience today, here's a very, very interesting sort of tidbit of information here. According to recent research, developing and deploying an app, once you factored in the time for prototyping, going into beta and ultimately delivering and maintaining that app can range anywhere from 20K to 140K. And then, just last but not least, right, the APIs and the automation that they drive can just really, really just improve connectivity, collaboration, and even communication within an enterprise. And since APIs, that core functionality is that connectivity, right? And they enable, different teams, different systems, different applications and platforms to basically to all come together and to connect and share data with one another. And then you can use that data to perform various types of functions. And, Sonny, I actually read somewhere that on average, a company can run around 460 custom applications, right? And so, without APIs, all of these tools and the benefits that they provide could be siloed, quite frankly, which basically reduces their impact on businesses' bottom lines, right? And then with all that being said, when it all comes together, the net piece of it here is that in terms of advantages, is that the APIs and the automation that they provide just basically helps drive innovation. And through APIs, businesses can introduce cutting edge technologies with fewer resources. You can adapt to requirements faster, like meeting those SLAs, and even introduce new ways to grow your business. And with that, this is where we're going to all bring it all home, and we're going to connect all the dots, right? By talking about APIs and automation in the context of it at Skyline Advisor Pro. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sunny.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelsey. So let me do this. Let me switch over and share my screen. All right. Hopefully you all can see this.
I sure can.
All right. So let me actually close this out as well. So we're talking about Skyline Insights API, right? So as you all know, it's been released for some times now, right? Some of you have already started testing. Some of you have already reached out to me working on other tasks, and some of you are just learning about it today. No worries. What we'll do is we'll go through the process of showing you how to enable it from Advisor so you can start. B, show you how to run just a basic query of your findings, right? And then C, show you how you can connect to all those endpoints. Endpoints being ServiceNow, PagerDuty, Jira, you name it, all right? If you've seen this video, if you've seen this webinar with us before, don't worry. There's always going to be new stuff that Kelsey and I will add in. Likewise, if you're new, don't be too heavily concerned because at the end, we'll show you some cool tricks to get you up and running. And last but not least, if you have any inputs based on your experience about running the APIs and testing out and stuff, don't hesitate to share with the rest of the community here. I think it'll be valuable for everyone. Okay, so with that being said, hello. Okay, good. So the first thing you need to do, right, is you need to go into Advisor and you need to create yourself an API token, right? But before that, what you need to do is you need to make sure you have the right role. So in the past, you would have a user role or an admin role. There's also an API role, right? An API user role. If you don't enable that role, sadly, what happens is you won't be able to do anything else, even if you do everything else right. The second piece, of course, is you need to create yourself an API token, right? So what you do is you put a name, leave it at 6 months, right? You select a developer and then you create. It will give you a very tiny little alphanumeric key. Save that off, please, because it will not show up again, right? So you do that, you save it off and you continue, and voila, you have your API key. With that being said, it does not mean that you have access into the APIs just yet. It's just a key to get there, right? So the next thing you need to do is you need to create an access token. That access token only lasts for 5-10 minutes. It's a much bigger access, it's a much bigger key, but that's what gets you to your data, right? So what you're seeing here from the code, it may look overwhelming for those who haven't done this. For those who have, you've seen this before, but those who haven't, you will find the same exact code in both our blog site as well as the API documentation. Okay, so as you can see, I'm just going to run it real fast and you get the longer alphanumeric key that you can access the data, right? So already you've created, your role, you've get your API key, you've created your access key. What you could do now without ever coding, right? You can actually go back into the Advisor and go into API Explorer, jump into GraphQL, right? And then you can actually add in that access key right at the bottom where it says query variable, right? You can actually plug it in here and voila, you'll get your result. Now, with that being said, you can actually do a lot in this space, but ultimately, all the results you get out of this is just viewing only. You can't really tie this to anywhere else. The value here with GraphQL, if you haven't tried, is if you look on the left side, right, where it says active findings, you can actually tweak those settings, right? To minimize the amount of output you want. For example, when I show examples of the coding after this, you'll see that I tend to do finding ID. I tend to do KB link. I tend to do affected objects. I don't try to get all of that because sometimes while it looks great, when you're coding, you don't need more variable and more, values to have to worry about. But with that being said, what you see here, you can get everything that the API can do. Okay, so that's that. Now, let's go a little bit deeper. Let's start looking at the code. And what I'll do is I'll show you this in curl. I'll show you this in PowerCLI, right? And then last but not least, I'll give you a surprise. Okay, so and it doesn't matter if it's shell, it doesn't matter if it's PowerCLI, it's always in three aspects, right? One aspect is you need to make sure you have your API token. Don't look at your access token, it's actually your API token, okay? It's that small little alphanumeric that you got from the web portal, right? So the second piece is the token. So earlier on, if you recall, you saw that fast, video of the code. That's what that looks like. And once again, you will find this in the API documentation as well, right? And then last but not least, now that you've got your API token, you create your access token, you can now run this curl command. And if you recall earlier on with the GraphQL, that same active finding section, that's what you see here. And as you can see, I minimize the amount of output that's there. You can actually have the whole entire thing, right? That's once again, that's up to you. But this is what it looks like from a shell perspective. If you're a Mac user or a Linux user, this is right up your alley. Okay. Now, if you're a PowerShell user, same trick. All right. So the API token is still there, right? Now, this body is how we represent the getting the access token itself, right? So it's still invoke REST API, right? Method. You can see that it also try to grab the refresh token, that is your API, right? And then last but not least, if you take a look at the bottom, right, there are two lines here. The first line is hey, invoke REST method, get me the data based on what I'm asking for. By the way, the token 2 is the access token. The Skyline.json is that active finding section that you saw. Everything else, if you compare that with the curl, you'll find that the content type as well as posts and everything are always the same, right? That last line is just, oh, you got me the data, I'll put it out, and I just want the product and I just want the affected objects, as well as the finding ID. Okay, once again, for that last line, you could actually have it so that way it spells out everything for you if you want to. Okay, so I do recall folks saying, hey, by the way, when we did the poll, you all said, well, some of us are using PowerShell, some of us are using Python. Guess what? I worked with a customer and he was kind enough to share this with me because he has a much bigger Python background. So once again, as you can see, my data is still add the API token, right? This whole section right here is all about getting the data. So the request post is literally the same as the curl command and or the invoke REST, right? What I didn't mention is if you take a look up top, always remember to import to request, because if you don't do that, you won't be able to do the request post. Secondly, if you take a look at the from Earl lib3, those two lines are very important because if you were to ever hit anywhere where there is a cert problem, a cert inconsistency, it will ignore that for you. Luckily for us, with connecting to a CSP, with connecting to Skyline, you don't have that problem. Okay. So here's the last piece. So here's the actual getting the data itself, right? So as you can see, this is the Skyline piece. The active finding is still there, right? And then it just gives you up the data that you want. All right. There's a lot here. Don't worry about it. We make it a point to put it onto the blog section where you will find this. So you are the second folks who actually get this chance to see this. folks who were at VM Explorer, they got to see this first. You get to see the second, but no worries. I have a gift for you as well. Okay. So now that we got just the basic findings, let's talk about where can we send it, right? So you may have seen videos of this. You may have even seen blogs of this. I just want to go in depth a little bit more, just so that way you get to understand a little bit more if you had questions. Those who are net new, guess what? You'll pick this up fairly fast as well. All right. So from a Jira perspective is you definitely need to have your own Jira server, right? So every customer will have their own Jira instance, right? What you then do is you need to start making that, that JSON file, right? And for Jira, what's important is it depends on what your Jira environment is. For our Jira environment, we need at least a few things, right? We need the field, project, key, and then of course you want to add in your summary and everything, right? But then I also need the issue type, right? Those are the key pieces that I need. If I don't add those in, anything I do after the fact is irrelevant. So it may be the same as yours. You may need additional custom attributes as well, right? So that's up to you, but at least you get to see what it looks like, just the basic, right? And then last but not least, what you do is you do the same as you did before. You do the REST, invoke REST with your Jira server, with your file. And for this example, what I did was I said, hey, give me the username and password. It could be that you want to use a token instead. Ideally, you'd want to use a token. But for this, I just want to show you an example that you can actually have it a little bit of interaction if you want it. Okay. For PagerDuty, same thing, but slightly different. So here, what you're going to notice, right, is in the header, you need this specific PagerDuty JSON configuration. If you don't do that, it will actually fail, right? For this example, I actually use the PagerDuty token, right? Once again, PagerDuty wants certain attributes, right? Incident, type, ID. Those are the three main pieces. The title and description is up to you. And I use that scenario to put in the information that I want. So what I did was I export the data out of CSV. It doesn't matter if you export it through your advisor or you ran the code to get that. And then I just pump it into here. And last but not least, it doesn't matter if it's your PagerDuty or my PagerDuty, the location is always the same. API PagerDuty.com incidents. And because of your token, it goes to your queue and everything else. With that being said, when you test this out, you'll notice it's going to start paging your whole group constantly as soon as it hits. So you may want to actually put it to a test queue or better yet, send it to a queue that won't inform anybody. You don't want like 10, 20 of your colleagues asking what's going on. All right. So ServiceNow, same scenario. This time around, I actually use the server of, the ServiceNow server, your choice, as well as my account or your account, right? What I then did was, oh, by the way, and the cool thing is if you're running ServiceNow APIs through, say, for example, Shell or anything else, you literally have to do the REST, new REST. But because if you're using PowerShell, like I am showing you here, they actually have a module to leverage it. So instead of going through and coding a lot more complex stuff, I actually use the plugin. So as you can see, I use the new, ServiceNow session, right, to connect it in. And then I just send the new ServiceNow incident. I made it easier. Now, once again, this is great if you're using PowerCLI. If you're using Python, you may have a plugin for that. You may not. I don't know. But no matter what, the worst case scenario is always to invoke REST. All right. So here's something that new that I haven't shared with anyone else yet. And the reasons why we always ask for you to come join us in all of these webinars is every time there is one, we always share something net new. So, I've got other customers asking, it's great that you show it to me to send to Slack. Why don't you send it to Microsoft Teams? Well, here it is. Once again, very similar to ServiceNow. Microsoft Teams, being that it's Microsoft and PowerShell is Microsoft, there's actually a plugin for this, right? If you ever want to know, reach out And then I'll give you more details what's going on. Likewise, I will also post this into our blog as well. So don't hesitate to check it out there, right? But all you need to do is create a webhook in whatever channel, whatever, sections of the teams that you want to do, right? And then what you do after that is, of course, you then grab all the data from your CSV, your findings, right? You connect to the Microsoft, and then you just send a message in. This is a very simple method, right? So it will send in, it'll come up as a block. If you were to check out the send teams messages, you'll notice that there's a lot more variables to it. So it makes it look very, you could actually do a lot of things, so to speak, to make it easier to read, a lot easier to share with your colleagues. And then last but not least, I always recommend disconnecting to Microsoft Teams. All right, very simple. Now I can show you this in REST API as well, but to be honest with you, this is the easiest way to do that. So for those who are code savvy, you're like, oh, Sonny, there's nothing new. Oh, you showed me the Teams, fantastic, but all the other stuff I've learned already. So for those who aren't comfortable with coding, a lot of what I showed you earlier on might be overwhelming. You kind of like the idea of the GraphQL approach, but command line. So let's talk about it, right? So this is Skyline Automation Toolkit, right? When you install it, all you do is you do prep and you just add your API token in, right? As soon as you do that, you're up and running. What you can do now is you can run a skyline-com get findings list, and voila. Everything that you have from your finding ID to all the servers that is connecting to you and the amount of affected objects will show up, right? If you want to go really deeper, you can actually do the skyline-com get-findings long list, and you'll see everything, not only every single finding, but everything that ties to that. It gets overwhelming, by the way, all right? Then what you could do after that is you can go, well, you know what? I don't want to find everything. I just want to find a specific type. I want to find an upgrade type, a configuration type. By the way, I forgot to code in troubleshooting. So the next iterations, you'll notice it'll have a troubleshooting option as well. But if you do, you get to see just that, just your upgrades, right? So once again, it narrows down the amount of findings that you need to look at, right? Or you want to look at. Once again, if you're curious about severity, right? Just say, for example, you're only interested in critical because you and your team only has X amount of time. So get dash finding space, critical, severity, critical, and voila. All of your, entities will show up, right? It's the goal here is to make it so that way you can run and use the API without doing any coding. With that being said, because you installed the automation toolkit, you can actually take a look underneath the cover and start seeing all the codes, right? And what I mean by all the codes is for example, you saw me do example of the list, you saw me do example of the type and severity. You could also do category, right? You could do the top 5, top 10, top whatever, right? What is really cool is I show you every single examples, right? But they're all individual examples. What if you want to say, hey, I want to know this type configuration, and I also want to know severity. Every time you execute a command, a skyline.json file lands into that path. You can actually read that and you'll see active findings, you'll see everything else. You can actually plug and play and add those lines in to your heart's content. When you're done, you just do a get dash finding custom and voila. You get that custom results based on any kind of, attributes you want. Now, earlier on, you saw me show example of sending to Slack, ServiceNow, Jira. Well, guess what? I've encoded in here as well. Earlier on, you saw me show a screen of editing the Skyline config file, right? That you put the API in. If you notice underneath, it shows Slack, ServiceNow, Jira. So if you plug those in and you run these commands, you can go, well, get finding list, send it to Jira, and voila, it lands into your Jira. All right. And last but not least, what's really, well, actually two things. One thing is everything that you see so far has landed on the screen. if you were to do send to CSV, it'll create a CSV file that mimics the same exact look and feel as if you were to export it out from Advisor. Here's something that new as well. I had a customer asking me, Sunny, everything you showed me here is good, but I'm interested in searching for something like Horizon, something like VMSA, something like VCF. So I actually just incorporated argument 7 in, which is get finding space, search, and then a variable, whatever that variable be. It could be VCF, it could be Horizon, it could be NSX, whatever it be, and then it will output that as well. I just added this in. I will update the Fling site with that new info. I will also start incorporating the send to Slack, ServiceNow, and stuff like that, as well as you can see, I'm missing PagerDuty, and now I'm missing Teams. I'll add those in as well. Okay. So as you're installing the automation toolkit, there's actually other pieces to this as well. I'm not going to go deep into this, but I just want to say that there is a Skyline-helper, which you can use to set roles within your vCenter, deploy your collector via an OVA if you want to. And if you ever want to do the adding users to your organization, you could do it through here. And last but not least, there's also the Skyline Fixer. So for example, you've seen Kelsey and I talk about, hey, within the findings, you'll see that, we see that you have an NTP problem, you have a snapshot problem, you have an ESX that needs to be updated, right? You have advanced settings. Well, Skyline Fixer can help you do that, right? So what you can do is if you export the findings out to CSV, it doesn't matter if you use the API, it doesn't matter if you use the advisor. Skyline Fixer will take a look at the CSV and go, okay, I know what the host is, I know what the main server that is, and I know the KB that's tied to that. So here's what I'll do for you, right? Keep in mind, this is a Fling, so I would recommend you test this in a dev environment before you do it in production, all right? But it may solve a lot of your problems in a very short amount of time to let you worry about other things. So with that, I will hand this back over to Kelsey to talk about the next steps.
Sunny, Vincent in the audience has given us a new project to look at, investigating the integration of the API with Trello. So as we look at future iterations of this and adding that new content, that could be something that we can focus on.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you.
Thanks, Vincent, for that. And so with that, right, this is where we are. We're in terms of next steps. And so like Sunny said, right, just be sure to check out the official documentation. If you're an existing customer, just go to the documentation link in the product. And if you're not currently using Skyline, you can also access the documentation on VMware Code. All you got to do is just simply click on the API option and then select the link for Skyline Advisor Pro. There, like Sunny said, you can get an overview of REST APIs and the GraphQL terminologies. You can learn how to get your authentication tokens and define schema, as well as execute, queries like the ones that Sunny just demonstrated here. And with that being said, just be sure to bookmark that link on VMware Code, because like Sunny said, he's always doing updates. And so make sure that you are accessing and downloading and leveraging that toolkit there. And in terms of some other next steps, you just want to make sure that you are aware of other URLs that you can take advantage of. If Sunny's amazing demo wasn't enough to make you all adopt on the spot, you'd like to get a personalized demo on how to get full use of Skyline, or simply just get help setting up the service, right? Be sure to sign up for a free workshop with our Skyline task force. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to get certified if you're already using the service. The VMware Skyline Advisor Pro Technologist badge, really just sort of validates skills for supporting and managing and planning, your environments through that proactive monitoring ability that Skyline provides. And then, once you've adopted the service. Be sure again to check out that Skyline Automation Toolkit. It's currently, like Sunny said, available as a Fling, and it allows cloud admins, SREs, and others to really automate a lot of Skyline Advisor's proactive intelligence findings, and integrate those into the tools of your choice. And with that, I believe we've got some other URLs here with a couple minutes left. Just make sure that you're visiting the URLs included here for additional information, like frequently asked questions. And if you are a Skyline customer, make sure that you check out that free trial of vRealize Operations Cloud, so that you can take full advantage of the unified support and management experience that these two products provide when they're integrated together. And I also just want to mention that we have a moderated community who can answer some of your technical questions as well. So we encourage everyone here to go visit that community and check it out. And with that, we want to say thank you. And if there's any additional questions, we've got about 120 seconds left. Sunny, we killed it with time. That was awesome.
Yeah, so anyone, if you want to type something in the Q&A box real quick, we can answer that. Or if you want to unmute yourself, we can also hear you talk.
I just want to say for the record that I'm jealous of the people that got the t-shirt. I don't even have the t-shirt. I don't even think I've seen the t-shirt. So
I don't have the t-shirt either.
If you do, don't hesitate to take a picture of it and share it on LinkedIn, because
on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever the case may be, so I can be jealous from afar.
Yeah, and so Itana, and again, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, has a t-shirt from a previous webinar and says that it's great.
Awesome.
Hey, Sonny, we got one last question here. Are there any plans for creating a Python package to integrate or interact with the Skyline API? And then, there's a question about the Skyline Advisor Pro. Is it a certification? Yes, indeed it is, Vincent. We will get you access to that link. If we can maybe type it into the chat, Michelle or Sunny. I don't have the link readily available, but it's basically 6 modules, and you'll get a badge. It certifies your knowledge of the service, and you can place that on your LinkedIn profile. And Sunny, again, the Python package integration with the API.
Yeah, that is definitely a possibility. So we just started with just showing you the first piece, but we can definitely continue on with that. Yeah.
Good deal.
Great question.
And let me put this in the chat really quick here for the badge. It's on, you can take the certification course on our learning portal, Customer Connect.
Thanks, Michelle. And with that, again, just want to say thank you for attending. It's a great session. Thanks, Sunny. Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.